Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I've been playing PokeMMO for 13 years, and even I still remember that one of the most difficult things to do when you're a new player is defeat the Elite Four, especially your first Elite Four. A lot of players, understandably so, get stuck against these pretty darn difficult trainers within PokeMMO. So today, I'm hopeful to give you 5 tips to help you defeat the Elite Four and make them a lot easier within PokeMMO, and these tips should be very easy to actually quickly follow. I don't like offering tips for defeating the Elite Four and having them be something like, oh yeah, just go get a level 50 Gyarados. You know, I don't want to recommend people to go get new Pokemon from scratch. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you have your team of Pokemon. You are at the Elite Four. So all of these tips will be very quick to adjust to and should be very low cost overall. If you find today's video helpful, make sure to leave a like on it to let me know. That helps me out a ton, and consider subscribing if you want more tips and tricks or any sort of guides or anything related to PokeMMO. Now, tip number 1 on this list is probably the easiest one to do quickly, and it's also the most powerful in my opinion. Tip number 1 is to get yourself a Stealth Rock, sturdy Pokemon to lead all of your fights. Now, first, let me show you how to actually get those, and then secondarily, I will explain why it's so good and why it's so powerful. First things first, any sort of Stealth Rock Pokemon works. This could be things like Geodude over in Kanto. It could be things like Roggenrola if you're over in Unova. There are tons of Pokemon with the ability Sturdy and then the move Stealth Rock. And the beautiful part is, this could be a level 1 Pokemon. This is not me telling you that you have to go get yourself a level 50 Golem with Stealth Rock and Sturdy. No, you could just head over to Rock Tunnel over in Kanto, for example, run back and forth for a quick second, get yourself a Geodude encounter, and then go ahead and attack it to see if it has the Sturdy ability. Just like this, where you run into a Geodude and you actually want to go ahead and use an attacking move, because if you use something like False Swipe, which is what you would normally use to catch Pokemon, it's actually going to leave it at 1 HP. But if you just attack it, now I know for sure that this Geodude has Sturdy, so I'm not wasting my time on the catch. Geodude does have a 50-50 chance to either be Rockhead or Sturdy, and we do need that Sturdy ability. This level 15 Geodude is going to crush the Kanto Elite Four. I'm not even joking. So once you find out that it does have Sturdy, you want to go ahead and throw your Pokeball and catch it really quick. You can also buy a Pokemon like this off of the GTL for extremely cheap. You want to head and go over to the advanced search over on the GTL, look up has move Stealth Rock, and then you can also scroll down and look for has ability Sturdy. I actually do recommend just buying one. It is much faster, much cheaper, and really convenient. You can also get a very high level Pokemon. So for example, if I were doing my storyline right now, I would probably go ahead and buy something like this level 40 Gigalith. Does not need stats, does not need EVs, it doesn't need anything. It just needs to set up Stealth Rock, survive 1 attack with Sturdy, and then it's done its job. And here's that Geodude we just caught for free if you'd rather do it with the Pokeball versus paying the 4,000 to 5,000 Pokeyen. Once again, very cheap, but this is also a free alternative. What you want to do is lead every single fight against the Elite Four with this Geodude. And what's going to happen is you're going to click Stealth Rock every single time. The opponent is going to try to attack you. You are going to live with Sturdy unless you're against Lorelei and they lead with Cloyster and go for Icicle Spear. That's called being unlucky. Better luck next time. There are certain multi-hit moves or even fake out Pokemon that can make this a little tricky, but I would say about 80% of the Elite Four fights, you're gonna be able to get off your Stealth Rock. And when you do, boy, it's gonna make all of your fights so much easier. Stealth Rock is incredibly powerful against all of the Elite Fours in PokeMMO because there are a lot of enemy Pokemon running around with the Sturdy ability themselves. There are a lot of Pokemon running around with Focus Sashes, and there are also a lot of Pokemon that are very weak to this. So for example, if you picked Venusaur or Bulbasaur as your starting Pokemon in Kanto, that means your rival has a Charizard. When your rival switches in Charizard onto your Stealth Rocks, he is going to be chunked down to 50% HP. That is one of the biggest checks to Charizard in PvP. Actually is Stealth Rocks. The same is true whenever Lance in the Kanto region brings out all of his Dragonites that are super strong, super powerful. You're chipping them down to about 75% HP or so. There are so many powerful Pokemon that get absolutely shredded by Stealth Rocks, and it also puts you into a lot of damage rolls you wouldn't be able to. So what I mean by that is when you lead every single Elite Four fight with the Stealth Rock Geodude, and then you go into like your Gyarados or whatever secondary Pokemon, your Gyarados that might have done 88% before and taken 2 attacks to kill the opposing Pokemon, well now the Stealth Rock has chipped it in a way where it one-shots them. And when something only takes 1 attack to die versus 2 in Pokemon, that is a very big deal because now your Pokemon is taking 0 recoil damage. Their Pokemon has no chance to attack and return any damage because you're chipping them down with Stealth Rocks and then sweeping them with other powerful threats. Stealth Rock and Sturdy is genuinely the most powerful way to get a huge boost, and any Pokemon trainers, Elite Fours, etc. I cannot recommend it enough. It is super good against everything. It is something that I still use to this day. Whenever I play alt accounts, I still set up Stealth Rocks against Elite Fours and often some trainers. It's also important to note that in PokeMMO, during your first Elite Four run, every time you defeat an Elite Four member, your whole party heals after the fight. So you don't even have to waste any revives or any healing items on the Geodude. He will just heal after every single victory. All right, but finally on to tip number 2. Sorry, I just love yapping about tip number 1 because it's just so darn important and pretty simple to adjust to. But tip number 2 is X items. Feel free to go ahead and abuse X items within PokeMMO. I know, for example, that I didn't know what these were prior to me playing PokeMMO. I never used X items in traditional Pokemon games. I had never heard of them. These are the most powerful items in the game. Feel free to use X items and setup moves. Any Pokemon that learns things like Dragon Dance, like Gyarados, anything that learns Quiver Dance, like Blossom. Setup moves are extremely powerful in Pokemon storylines, and they're moves that a lot of us didn't use growing up playing Pokemon as a kid. I for sure, if I saw a move didn't do any damage, I just wouldn't learn it. You know, it's one of those patterns we have to reteach ourselves as adults playing Pokemon because this game is a lot more difficult. Things like Quiver Dance, things like Nasty Plot, things like Swords Dance, things like Dragon Dance, anything that boosts your damage or speed is generally very powerful. Agility can sometimes be good, but that kind of depends on the Pokemon if it really just needs that one speed boost to be able to sweep. But agility is probably one of the weaker ones in my opinion. But you can combine any of these boosting moves with other X items and other boosts, or if you have a Pokemon that doesn't have a boosting move, but you really like that Pokemon, you can go ahead and combine it with X items. Let's say, for example, I had a really good Breloom that I was playing the storyline with. This is not a very good example, ignore the moveset, but let's just say, for example, I had a really good Breloom that I was using the storyline with, right? And let's say I didn't have Swords Dance on my Breloom. What I could do is I could have Spore, right? I could Spore my opponent, and then I could go ahead and use like an X attack or an X speed, or potentially both, while my opponent is still asleep. And now I have +2 attack, +2 speed, and I'm able to sweep the whole fight. A big part of trainers and Elite Four members in PokeMMO is putting yourself in the position to sweep with 1 or 2 Pokemon, as opposed to doing equal damage with a bunch of different valid threats along the way. At least that's how I like to play, and I think it works out pretty darn powerful in my opinion. Next up, a resource that I don't see talked about nearly enough in the PokeMMO community is that you can actually use the PokeMMO wiki to x-ray your opponents and see all of their moves and important things to watch out for. This link will be in the description. Don't worry, check it out. But for example, I can click on Lorelei and see that I need to watch out for Slowbro, Cloyster, Dugong, and Jinx, and Lapras. I can see all of her Pokemon. I can see the items they may have, and I can see their move pools. For example, I need to keep an eye on Dugong having rest. If I'm in a position where Dugong is low HP, but I want to be greedy and go for some sort of healing item, I don't want to actually do that. I want to keep an eye out for that rest and KO it before it can get that rest off, right? So there's just a lot of important information. Shell Smash Cloyster is a big one. Watching out for that. The fact that Slowbro has some healing capabilities with his Slack Off. The fact that Cloyster has rock coverage. That's very important. There's just so many things here. Jinx having access to Energy Ball. That's really important if you're using like rock types to beat down her ice types. There's just so much important information here. Thunderbolt on her Lapras, like that's crazy coverage. This is just an absolutely super hyper powerful tool that if you find yourself stuck in the Elite Four, definitely abuse this and check it out. I do understand that some players may not want to use this, which is super fair. I understand that it could take away from your first time experience, but I think PokeMMO is a pretty difficult game, and sometimes when you're really stuck, you want to just be able to defeat things and move on and get to the parts of the game that you enjoy. But next up, tip number 4 is something I see way too often, and it's to not skimp on your XP training. Going ahead and just acknowledging that you're going to bite the bullet and do 1 hour or so, just 1 hour of XP training is going to save you so much hassle and stress throughout your Pokemon journey. I have seen so many people come to me, Patrouski, I'm stuck at the Elite Four, what do I do? And they'll have Pokemon that are level like 44 or 48 in their inventory when the highest level cap is like 58 or 56 certain ones, and it's just so helpful to just take a second and make sure you do some XP training and fully XP train your Pokemon. It's going to give them all around stats, more power, and just make everything way easier. You can usually XP train at the nearest horde spots at every victory road. Every Elite Four has their victory road. They all have these like ×5 horde spots of decently XP trainable Pokemon, like these Sand/Slash hordes right here. Or you could even go back in the storyline and rebattle some of the trainers throughout some of the routes, like over at Bike Road. You might not get as good XP, but you'll also get some Pokeyen along the way. Really, anything works. And if you're feeling super lazy and you have some extra Pokeyen, you can go purchase some XP candies. XP candies usually are more cost effective than rare candies, unless you're at like level 80 or 90 plus on certain Pokemon. But especially around that Elite Four level, go ahead and use some XP candies. Just be careful and make sure not to over level your Pokemon over your max obedience level so they aren't usable. That is the nightmare situation, so be very careful with that. Now, tip number 5 is probably the softest tip on this list, and it requires a lot of game knowledge and timing, but if you can abuse this, it's really powerful. But this is definitely one where if you don't apply all these tips, this is a totally okay one to skip out on. Honestly, if you just apply 2 of these tips, you should be more than willing to be able to, or more than able to crush the Elite Four. Even just the Stealth Rock sturdy tip will really help a lot of people push them over that edge. Most people are very close to being able to beat the Elite Four. They just need one quick thing like the sturdy Stealth Rock. But the final tip, if you want to really use it, is to abuse fake out turns or other priority turns. And a good example is like Elite Four member Bruno, and you do kind of need to use the X-Ray or Wiki website to really be able to use this properly. But Bruno has a Hitmonlee, for example, with fake out and sucker punch. If you see Hitmonlee come in, there is a really good chance he's going to go for fake out, unless you have like a normal type Pokemon that's weak to high jump kick. So a lot of this comes down to understanding how the AI works and game knowledge, which is tough to recommend for people who are stuck in the Elite Four. But if you're really stuck on Bruno or certain trainers, keep an eye out for those fake outs, those sucker punches. If there's an obvious, like if they switch in Hitmonlee and your Pokemon is low HP, they can go for a fake out. Like you want to go ahead and basically abuse that turn by throwing up an X item or some sort of healing item. I've done this a few times in different Elite Fours in the past where I know if my opponent has that fake out and is going to go for it when they bring, because they can only go for it on that first turn when they bring that Pokemon in. So it's pretty easy to read the fake out. Bruno's Hitmonlee, for example, even has normal gem to boost the fake out damage. Fake out is going to prevent you from getting off an attack, but you can still use items. So using the fake out turn to get off a hyper potion, get off a revive, get off an X item, even an X defense to tank the fake out, or an X speed or an X attack. Well, now all of a sudden you've turned a wasted turn from fake out into an extreme power boost, and sometimes that is enough to push you over the edge and help you defeat a fight that you normally wouldn't have been able to. But all right, that is the 5th and final tip. These tips should work for all of the Elite Fours within PokeMMO, and I hope that this is enough to push you guys over the edge. But if it's not and you're still stuck, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'm sure either myself or some other helpful gamer will be happy to kind of assist people and help push them through that Elite Four edge and really unlock the rest of PokeMMO. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, leave a like on it. That means the world to me and is the quickest way to show some quick support and love if this video helped you out. Subscribe for daily PokeMMO videos. Follow me on Twitch for streams, usually Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET. My Discord is down below if you're interested in that. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the community, support me, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, PayPal, and Venmo donations really allow me to put time and effort into this content, and I hope I can always earn it from you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and good luck against your Elite Fours. I hope you guys get lots of lucky crits today. Yo, what's up? Outro Patrouski here, and I wanted to say thank you so much to everybody's name who is on this list. You really allow me to make the content that I do every single day, and I hope I can make it worth your guys' while and add to your PokeMMO journey. Thanks again so much for watching the entire video, and have a great day.